What's up, Melanated family? This is your boy Harrison, man, from the Melanated Convo podcast. I am so happy to be back for another episode. How's everybody doing? I got, man, when I say I got a special guest on my show today, this is so real quick. You got to peep my evolution. When I first started my platform, I did this to interview Black fathers solely who was going through things, who could express themselves in a particular way. This was all written. There was no video, was none of that. This brother was one of the first brothers I interviewed on my podcast, and the information he gave me, the conversation we had, it stood with me. Like what he was going through was so miraculous to hear someone verbalize these type of issues when, again, a lot of my brothers, a lot of the men I'm around, we don't necessarily talk about shit but women in sports at times. This brother was open. He was transparent. So on today's show, we got my brother CJ from the Normalized Podcast. I'm going to bring him on really quickly so we can get into his story. This brother didn't made a damn movie out of his podcast. What? I'm going to play the trailer too. We ain't going to play the whole thing. You got to pay for that. You know what I mean? I'm going to play the trailer though, because it's powerful stuff. So I got my brother CJ on the show today. How everybody doing, man? I'm all excited and shit. How everybody doing, man? You know what I mean? Let's get into the black businesses though. The health of our community. If you don't like injustice, if you don't like how we're treated, cool. Like I understand you, but what are you doing? Right? What are you actually doing? There's things you can do every day. You can go to your neighborhood and pick up pick up garbage. You can go to your neighborhood and mentor a kid. You can be a good father. Hey, black men, being a good father is actually a revolutionary act. Let's say you don't want to march. I ain't went to march and I ain't going to put my fist up. Cool. Raise your kids. Teach them about history. Love on them, right? Let your boys know it's okay to show emotion. Right? They say men ain't emotional. Yeah, everybody got fucking emotions. A little boy got to be able to show it. You being a great father is a revolutionary act in itself. And another thing you can do is support black businesses. Bigger businesses, smaller businesses, support black businesses to the best of your ability. We understand that Walmart is right down the street. I'm not telling you to take all of your money and just look for black businesses. That may not be feasible in today's society. I get that. But what I'm doing here on my show is I find qualified black businesses to share with the family. Like I always say, if you don't like one that I'm sharing, find another one. Tell me about it. You know what I mean? So if you're listening to this on any of the digital platforms, please leave a review for the show. If you're on Google Podcasts, Overcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts digitally, please leave a review, share it with your friends. All my subscribers from Melanated Fathers TV, I appreciate you. If you're not subscribed to Melanated Fathers TV, you playing, go over there right now. Stop this video. Go over there right now and do that so you can get all these shows, the clips from these shows. You can get the History Matters section that I'm passionate about, because before we can know where we're going, we got to know where we've been. You feel me? So give me 1 second, man. We're going to get this thing popping with the black business segment. I'm excited, man. This is a brother who we've been talking and communicating for shit like 2 years now. So the fact that I have a platform where I can bring him on and see his face and talk to him and talk about his movie, all of this is a blessing. You feel me? So let's get everything started. The first black business. I am a big fan. If you guys aren't familiar, I'm a big fan with a show called the 85 South Show. The 85 South Show is a comedy platform started by 3 comedians, Carlos Miller, DC Youngfly, Chico Bean. They started this platform on YouTube where they pretty much have a comedy show, a 3-man comedy show. Now, I'm big on history, like I said, and I know the history of a lot of things. And in comedy, this is the first time. This is a revolutionary thing they're doing. 3 comedians all on the stage at one time. Their YouTube channel has gotten almost 1 billion views at this point. But what I'm highlighting today, because I love the businesses, I love evolution though too. What I'm highlighting today is the fact that these brothers took, and all my creators, this is some game right here. That's why I'm talking about this. They took their show, which was on YouTube, getting millions upon millions of views. They took it out of that algorithm and took it into their own hands, meaning now they have channel85.com. Channel85.com is where you can subscribe for like $8.99 a month, and you get all of their comedy shows directly to this platform. This is brilliant. All my creators, everybody out there who don't like how they're being treated by corporations or the corporate structure. Understand you can start your own shit. You can put your shit out on your own under your own terms. These brothers created this platform where it's $8.99 a month, and they do their comedy show on this platform. They do different skits, and they're just brilliant, funny comedians. What's the difference between this and Netflix? You can have your own damn Netflix. You just got to be of the mindset of someone that wants to do that. You know what I mean? Again, like I always say, there's nothing wrong with having a job. Most of us have to work to provide for our families. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you have any type of creative endeavors that you're trying to embark on, do that shit. Who knows how far you can go, but the first step is starting. You know what I mean? So I want everybody to go to channel85.com. These brothers got their show that you'll see on this platform. They got clothes that they sell. I'm just really, I don't know these brothers personally, of course, but these are brothers who I've watched them grind. I've watched them come from the mud and create their platform on their own, not on someone else's back. They created it on their own. They have their clothing line, which is 85 South Apparel. As you can see here, I actually have one of the hats on right now. That's why I wore it. So we need to support all types of Black businesses, and these brothers are grinding. And in my opinion, they're soon to be legends in the comedy game. So everybody do me a favor and go to channel85.com. That's channel85.com. Channel85.com. Subscribe. Even if you don't want to subscribe yet, you know what you can do? Here, let me show you the clothes really quickly here before I continue. Hold on one second. If you don't want to subscribe or you're unsure, let's say you've never heard of these brothers, that's cool. That's fair. I recommend going to YouTube. Go to the 85 South show on YouTube, and you can see a lot of the old shows on there. You can see a lot of the recent episodes where they interview like people in the music industry, people that TV stars, a lot of your Black entertainers who are really prolific. They have them on the show. Let me show you the clothes really quickly here. I thought I was sharing it, but I wasn't. This is 85 South 85 Apparel Company. Everybody listening to my voice on the digital platforms, I am highlighting my businesses where I am showing visual images of these businesses. If you would like to see the visual images, please go to Melanated Fathers TV. That's where you can find the video version of this podcast. But see, nice gear, you know what I mean? And having your own shit. There's nothing wrong with having your own shit, y'all. Have your own. Figure out a way to get whatever you want to get popping. Like I said, work a regular job. Provide for your family. Do what you got to do. But what are you doing for yourself? What are you doing for yourself? And that, look. That can be a business. Shit. That can be fishing. That can be mentoring. You like sewing. You like fucking it. See, the task at hand doesn't it that's contrary. It's really about what feeds your soul, family. You gotta feed your soul, man. If your job ain't feeding your soul, I'm not telling you to quit because the mortgage is due next month. I'm telling you, just find something on the side, family. Find something on the side. You ain't been being a good father. You ain't got a good connection with your kid. That can be your thing. You see what I'm saying? So whatever that thing may be, that's a part of me talking about the business, is to inspire the family to go after whatever the hell you want. So that is channel85.com, channel85.com. Go there today, subscribe, tell me how you like the show. Now, last business before I get my brother CJ on here. This is a sister who reached out to me because I reach out to people on Facebook and ask who are or where are there Black businesses that I can talk about, that I can promote for free. I do it for free now. That may change in the future, but for now, it's completely free. So this sister, hold on one second. Let me find this sister real quickly here. Let me share my screen. Share my screen. Where is it? Okay. So this sister has a platform called Ascribe Educational Consulting. And let me get the sister's name so I can represent her properly. Because I sometimes I look at a business and I'm like, this is just a great idea. Like, this ain't even something I conceptualized in my mind that somebody would do. They can make money from, but it's a whole bunch of stuff you could do, family. This sister's named Sonia Lewis. She has a business called Ascribe Educational Educational Consulting. And what she basically does, she is the visionary and CEO behind Ascribe Educational Consulting. If you look at the screen, it's ascribesuccess.com. She is an anti-racism impact strategist who helps organizations organizations and individuals with leveraging equality. She's an expert at moving organizations past the acknowledging the systematic negative impacts of racism, but strategically planning to leverage equality, humanity, and belonging. Yeah, and through this, let me let you see something really quickly here. Some of the services she offers. The Teach In is revolutionary. The Teach In, which is a visual supplemental program for kids K to 12, which is important. Kids need to know where they come from. Kids need to have some type of connection to their lineage. Scared Passages doula services. So she offered doula services as well, mental, physical, and emotional support throughout this journey. She offers equity. Mindset shift, receive equity training for your leadership team. You know what I mean? So that's really important. Anti-racism webinar. She facilitates those sessions. She is a speaker as well. She is a public speaker. So if you need someone to come speak at your business about how to navigate when, you're up against racism or you're experiencing something that isn't correct, sometimes how you approach it is everything, right? You can't just fly off the handle to address situations at times. Sometimes you have to be strategic, and sometimes you may need some consulting. So everybody, please go to ascribesuccess.com. That is ascribesuccess.com, Ascribe Educational Consulting, so you can get a handle on whatever it is you're going through business-wise. Like we see here, she has the doula service. She has the Teach In, the virtual supplemental program for K through 12. We all understand how important our babies are in evolving their mentality when it comes to everything they're bombarded with on a day-to-day basis, right? So this sister name is Sonia Lewis. I'm happy to present her business to you guys. Again, ascribesuccess.com for all my digital listeners. Ascribe is ASCRIBE SUCCESS. So ascribe, second word, success.com. Go to today. You may not even have known you need some of these services, but check out what she offers. Let's support my sister. You feel me? Now, for the guest today, let me bring my guest on. Let me bring on my boy. Hold on one second. All right. So on my show today, like I was saying, I have a brother who, both of us, right, because we met 2 years ago, we've been able to see each other's evolution, the moves we're making, the things we're doing, and it's just been great to see. And this brother created a great platform called the Normalized Podcast, where he speaks about the things he's had to endure in his journey in becoming a man. And this is important for all of us because, like I said, a lot of us do not talk. We go through things and we don't speak about it. He's being extremely transparent with his platform. And then the brother hit a home run because he made a movie out of his podcast. And when I say, I'm going to play the trailer a little later, but when I say this is a Netflix type movie, when I say, because I didn't know what to expect, I've never met a movie. I know how movies look on TV. I didn't know what he was going to send me. This shit was great. Like the quality of the movie, the actor that he has playing it. Well, I ain't gonna give it all away. It's just a great movie that everybody needs to be a part of and check out. So today on the show, I got my brother CJ. What's up, CJ?
What's going on, Harrison? How you doing, man?
It's
Can
all
I
good,
just
man.
doing good? Can I just take a second to say, man, brother, you walk the walk. Like it is. There is no cognitive dissonance with you at all. Like your actions match your words and your beliefs, and it all comes together with this presentation that you have, this platform that you've created. To hear you talk about these businesses which have no interest in you, therefore you're not getting paid for it. I mean, that's amazing. That's like giving back to another degree. Because so often we think about how is it going to interest me
Yep.
when I'm doing something, and you've done just a selfless act and just by helping out others. So that's just an amazing thing to see. It's something that we obviously need more in our community. It's something that I can improve upon. So just watching you model it, you know what I mean, is great to see. And it makes me think, and it makes me, really question like, what am I doing right now that is helping others out? I mean, because just to watch it's just beautiful, man. So I don't know how many shows start like this, but they just hit on so many positive, thoughtful yet reasonable things, lessons just to live by in life, and it's just a nice approach, man. So kudos to you, congratulations, man.
Thank you, brother.
Congratulations.
Thank you, brother. Now, so we spoke before, but I want my listeners potential moviegoers,
Yeah.
we need to get into your story a little bit. So tell everybody where you're from, CJ.
All right. So I'm originally from a town outside of Washington, D.C., called Germantown, Maryland. After college, most of my life, though, I live in Baltimore, Maryland. And oddly enough, when we talk about having our regular 9 to 5s, I work in Chicago. So every week from Tuesday to Friday, I travel to Chicago to do my job, which is a very, 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 very good job. And then I come back, to be a father. So it's an investment in time. It takes away from the family, but there's a reason why I'm doing it. And it helps finance a lot of my ventures. So, sometimes you got to make sacrifices in certain areas to get to where you want to go. But so I kind of live in Baltimore and Chicago. I got 2 places.
Got it. Okay. So talk to me real quick about like the Normalized Podcast. Like, why the podcast?
So, and honestly, that's funny because that's, the movie is about how the podcast started.
I know. Yeah.
And so why the podcast? I was going through, and I still struggle with a lot of different isms in life. But at the time of my life, I was really going through some bad drinking issues and got in an accident and started seeking therapy. And the therapist was like, you got an interesting story. You should do a podcast. And I had no idea what a podcast was. This was back in 2017. Research what a podcast was like, all right, but going from like my creative juices to some of the things you're talking about, how can I be different? How can I make this different from what everybody else is saying? Because so many of these podcasts, it just talks about, the trivial, sports, sex, and drugs. You know what I mean? It's that's what people, that's what we get typecast as. And sometimes we feed into that. So I was like, I want to be different. I'm like, I want to explain everything from my perspective and what my role was, how I was responsible for what happened to me in my life. Even if it's external factors coming in, how did I interpret that information and respond to it? So that's how it started. But never did I really realize it was really about mental health. The mental health component kind of came later on. It evolved. So it started off with me wanting to be different, wanting to tell my story a little. But I really was trying to think of a creative way to get my views and opinions out there. But really what was happening was I was doing therapy on a podcast and self-therapy for a podcast, that self-soothing that you're talking about. Clearly what you have right now with Melanated Fathers is, that's your thing. And this podcast became my thing. But I was different with it. I used music different. I use audio cues differently. And so I try to engage the listener with my stories that are always scripted. It's never just me rambling. So it comes out making sense. I close the loop on any loose ends that I talk about it throughout the show. So it's engaging. I kept it small to like 25 minutes because I know that's maybe somebody's average commute time to work, just enough time to keep your attention. And I know what I'm talking about, you're listening to, and you're thinking about it in yourself. Oh man, that happened to me. You know what I mean? Or I remember that happened to one of my friends. You're not even necessarily listening to me the way you are as you're reminiscing. You know what I mean? And I've learned that once I get you to kind of reflect on yourself and reminisce on yourself, I got you. I got you as my listener. And so that's kind of how the podcast started. And that was some of the creative things I did to make it different and unique. And what's more unique than your own story?
Exactly. Yeah.
Everybody has a unique story. But I had to get you to want to listen to me. It's not just me rambling. I had to get you to really buy in. And the only way to buy into people is when they're vulnerable. Because when they're vulnerable, you can empathize. And next thing you know, we have a relationship. So those were the kind of things that I was doing to build up my listenership.
Got it.
That's the podcast. 40 shows later. And then with the movies, with the film started, and we'll talk about that. I haven't done a show in like 10 months because I took time off. I was going through some things, but I also took time off to do the movie. So, definitely going to get started back on the podcast. I left it at a nice place to pick back up. It's kind of did that on purpose, but it's taking some time.
Got it. Now, so, what do you think is it about men? Because I'm speaking about Black men, but men in general. What do you think is it about men who don't feel comfortable speaking about the things they go through? Like, why do you think we close ourselves off like that, and we don't let our woman in, we don't let our friends in? Why do you think sometimes we choose to suffer in silence?
I can speak for me.
Yeah,
and
of course.
That's how I held it in at the beginning. A lot of times I didn't love myself the way I needed to love myself. So I was really shameful. And I didn't just have the respect for myself that I needed. So I was kind of scared to talk about how I was feeling because I just didn't, I was ashamed of myself. there is also a tendency for us, they talk about hypermasculinity all the time. You hear it in the media, you hear it on social platforms. People talk about what hypermasculinity is. And unfortunately, in the Black community, we live in the hypermasculine world. I mean, I grew up on Biggie and Pac and Scarface, and I still do listen to them. I'm still stuck in the 90s, but I never really paid attention to the impact that music was having on me. And even though they were expressing themselves, ironically enough, it made me want to be tough. And when you're tough, you know what I mean? You don't talk. You just kind of walk with, you walk your walk, and you don't cry. You don't show any emotion. You don't let anybody know that they're getting over on you. And you keep it all in. But when you keep it in, it's going to come out one way or the other. And it typically can come out through an ism. It can be, addicted to sex, it can be addicted to drugs, it can be addicted to alcohol, it can be addicted to gambling. It's going to come out. You're going to try to figure this out one way or the other if you're not really addressing your mental health. I mean, that's basically what talking is it's your mental health.
Yes, definitely. Now, something, because you did the podcast, and to me, I don't know your numbers or anything like that, but it's a success to me. Like how it sounds, how it can help people, the information that's being presented, that's a success to me. Now, what made you want to go from doing the podcast and letting people hear you to actually doing the movie?
It's a wild story, but basically I was listening to another podcast, and a brother named Damian Core was on this podcast, and he's a cinematographer, and he was a part of the Wu-Tang documentary on Showtime. He was one of the cinematographers on the Wu-Tang documentary. And he was saying things that kind of like you were saying. He was a professor at Howard University at the time. And he was saying things like there are so many platforms for people to get their voices out. But, people just need like a unique story and need to actually take advantage, because you do got Netflix, you do got Amazon, you got so many, they're just countless. But people need something unique, and you need a good story, and you need content. And as I was listening, I was like, I got all of those, you know what I mean? And I'm like, and I'm always on to the next one. I mean, we haven't talked about it yet. We can talk about my bipolarness. But I'm always off to the next thing. My brain is constantly racing. So it's really hard for me to be in the moment, be where my feet are. And I was like, I wonder how mine would reach, how my podcast would translate visually. So I knew the host of the podcast. I reached out to him. I said, can you send my podcast over to Dame? Have him take a listen and see if we can work together. It took about 3 weeks. And this is something for people to never give up, because sometimes you don't get that instant gratification. Dame got back to me probably a couple of weeks later, and he was like, he loves the show, and he definitely thinks there's some way that we could actually take the stories, because it's a story based, with our movies, with our films, their stories, and then translate it into film. So we went through the process of creating a film, and the first thing we did was create a story. And the first time I had to create the story, and I didn't know what to do. And he tried to guide me, and I learned so much about the film industry. And I wrote a story, and it was shit. And he told me it was shit. Like the first story I wrote, was like, what the hell is this? And I got down on myself. And I was like, man, maybe I can't do this. Maybe that's not what this is meant to be. But I was like, CJ, just focus up, try one more time. And then, so instead of having some like really complicated story about where I'm trying to hit all these different issues and trying to just like control all these different narratives and just get so many different opinions that I have out, I basically went back to keeping it simple. And I was like, well, how did the podcast start? And so, that's I just tell the story of how the podcast started.
Definitely. Now, you just mentioned something that I was going to talk about later, but I want to get into this because you're very transparent about this. Like, how do you manage? You mentioned being bipolar.
Yeah.
Talk to me, just for anybody who may be going through this, who hasn't spoken out about it, who's embarrassed about it. CJ, talk, because I have no idea, bro. I can only imagine. Talk to us about how can you manage that? Like, what do you do to manage it? What do you do to help yourself just to make sure you're still, like we talk about, normal? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I think one of the best things you can do is to go to normalizedpodcast.com and listen to episode, I think it's 34, and it's called The Diagnosis. And I made that episode to talk about me just being recently diagnosed as bipolar 2, which is different from bipolar 1. And just to
Hmm.
give you some kind of understanding of what bipolar 2 is, it's more depressive states followed by mania. So you may have like a week of depression followed by like 3 days of mania. So one of the things that I had to learn was depression isn't what you always think depression is. Depression isn't necessarily you being in bed being like, I want to die. Depression can be you being in bed and not being able to sleep. There's different characteristics of depression that I talk about in the show. And then the mania is actually a part that if you talk to people who are bipolar, they probably like the most, because the mania is where your creative juices go. You get like this sense of confidence, sometimes arrogance. You think you can't, there's nothing that can stop you. And it just is energy that does just this energy that just doesn't stop. And but it can cause, when you get too full of yourself, that's a problem, because it can go towards other areas. Again, if my mania was sometimes out of control, I'm like, shit, I need my head to stop racing. What's the best way for me to stop my head from racing is to take a drink, and so to calm my thoughts down. So, there's that mania that's always followed, that follows the depressive state. And it's not multiple personality disorder. It's not me being like CJ one day and Joey the next day. Like, I can't figure this dude out, man. He has all these damn personalities. It's not multiple personality disorder. And I think a lot of people confuse bipolar with multiple personality disorder. It is mood swings. There is a difference. I'm not acting as different people. But there is mood swings, but it is depression, and mania. Those are the symptoms, and there's all these other little symptoms that feed up into those larger elements. And I'll be honest, it's not easy to manage, because personally, as I said before, I don't like to take away my mania. My mania, I feel like it's a double-edged sword. It's allowed me to be as successful I am in my career, which is something I felt like another thing in the podcast that people should focus on. Blacks who are doing things professionally that aren't always sports related or aren't always entertainment related. I'm in the engineering industry, and I hold an extremely good position in the engineering industry, and I'm not an engineer. And I've worked really hard over 18 years to get to where I am. And so, I can't teach you how to make, well, right now I can, hopefully I can, be $5 million a year, but hey, I can tell you what it's like to be making like 250 to 300 a year. And, that's a good place to really generate wealth, because you can start other things and invest in other opportunities, especially within your community. So those are areas that, I really wanted to focus on with the podcast, but I don't like to take away that mania. And I have to realize though that mania can get me in trouble. So I have to remember, and that's another thing, remember like the bad places that stuff has led you to. But I have to remember to take my medication. It's you don't like it. People sometimes are anti-medication. Look, you're always putting something in your body that you don't really know what it is.
Every day.
So you just need to accept that and understand, have a little bit of trust. You know what I mean? And so I have to trust in my medication. And people have said there's a noticeable difference when I'm taking my medication and when I'm not. There's a noticeable difference when Kanye West, who I know is bipolar, I can just see it. There's a noticeable difference when he takes his medication and when he doesn't. You know what I mean? You can just see it. So it's remembering to take your medication, man. But you have to if you want to improve yourself. If you don't want to improve yourself, don't take it. But the problems will come. The consequences will come from that.
Definitely. Now, something I wanted to touch on real quick, just about the movie. I'm not going to give nothing away, but the character at one point, like he was speaking to someone, and he had like a negative outlook on his own success compared to someone else's. Like, what do you think that comes from? Because I see that spoke to me. I see people do that. Like they want to be somewhere. They'll see somebody who's where they want to be, and it's not like a motivating thing. They get down on their self, or they start hating on that person. Like, where do you think that comes from?
Well, it's insecurities. And those were my feelings, and those are areas where I have to always work on. The reason why I talk positively about my career is because I used to be so negative on who I was. And even if I was in a good place, I didn't think that it was a good place, because I had so much self-hate, self-doubt. I had so many insecurities, and all of these are symptoms that come with you from just life. You know what I mean? Being a Black male, all those external pressures that were coming on me.
Mm-hmm.
It just goes back to basically how one is viewing themselves, and just doing the shouldas. I should have done this, or I should have done that. It just it comes from a place for me. I think growing up insecure without a father in the house. Um, I think growing up poor, being the poorest kid on the block.
Hmm.
And it wasn't like, it wasn't in poverty, you know what I mean? So I didn't have to deal with issues of poverty because my neighborhood wasn't in poverty. It wasn't, you know what I mean? I was just that poor kid on the block, you know what I mean? Who, that's just where I was. And so those led to insecurities, going to a school that was out of my district, that didn't have people that kind of looked like me. It made me doubt so much about myself. And I really try to articulate that self-doubt throughout my podcast, which is nice to see it actually reflected well in the film. So it's good to see you pick up on that. I appreciate that.
Definitely. Now, let me see here. So, because a lot of the movie too is kind of just dealing with the pressures of certain things, but also temptation, right? Like what are because again, neither one of us are experts, but I just I like your take on a lot of these things because you've been through it. Me too, but you've been through it. So what can men do? Like how can we avoid the temptation? How can we avoid the things that we know are going to put us back to a state where we're unsure of ourselves, or it's negatively affecting our work or our family or our bodies? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's being triggered, and you have to. They call it the relapse process, which isn't just once. So they say once you take a drink, you actually relapsed maybe a week before, like because the thought was planted and you started making reservations for how you could get that into your body. So that's what that's called. And it's um it's hard to like describe. You know, we all have those triggers, and so for me, how do you prevent from those triggers? The first thing that you have to do is you have to accept that this is a problem with you. And I still struggle with it. I'm not going to lie. I still struggle with it every day. There are different life situations that you go through that make you think you can handle certain things, and you do handle it. But then something happens and you don't handle it, you know, and as you try to figure this process out, this life, which is very confusing. It's, you know, even after 42 years, life can be still confusing. I've learned to ride the wave a little more, but it's still a challenge. So when you get these triggers, and the first thing you have to do is accept that this is causing a problem in my life. And my life is out of control. And
You froze up a little bit there, CJ. Okay, so it looks like my brother's screen is. No, wait a minute. I can't hear you. Hold on one second. Your mic is. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Let me see something here. Unmute. Something happened with your mic, bro. It says your mic isn't connected. So give us 1 second, guys. My brother.
Can you hear me?
Yep, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, you can edit that out. I don't know how my mic just went to mute. I wasn't touching my screen. So I don't know what you heard or didn't hear. But like as I hear myself say the things that you have to do to recognize these triggers and accept yourself, because if you don't, it's going to lead down this wrong path. When I'm having an issue or relapse, or when I'm going through different phases, I don't necessarily live up to even what I said. I put that on the side. That's why medication is so important, because the medication helps the compulsive attitudes and the compulsive activities, your impulses to do certain things. Medication will actually slow that down. The medication will slow your brain down. It slows your compulsivity down, and you won't have an impulsive action. So that's why medication is important to take. And you just have to be willing to take it. Like again, it's just, you know, it's
definitely
always can be a challenge.
Yeah, and I would think as a man, if you have to take some medication or a pill to feel better, you may feel kind of weak. Like, I don't want to take that shit today, or I don't need to do that. But nah, if you have a family, if you have people around that love you, that you love, if that's in the best interest of these people, then you have to do what you got to do. And like you said, you made a good damn point. We putting stuff in our body every day where it's somebody telling us what it is, but we don't fucking know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't. See life as a pie. This is what my doctor told me. And you have different pieces of that pie that make your make it whole. And you know what I mean? And it can be your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. But it can also be, when we talk about your mental health, it can be medication. And you need all those pieces of that pie to make it whole. And if you don't have it, if you take a slice out, you're going to be your life, your body, something will struggle. I mean, we are walking towards death. We get that. The second we're born, we're walking towards death, but we don't have to sprint there, right? We can do things that kind of slow that process down. And that, ironically enough, to slow it down is to take care of yourself.
Definitely. And you mentioned something again that we talked about before, but we're doing the video thing now, so I want to cover this also.
Yeah.
And I liked your take on it. So talk to me about like not having your dad there. Like, because a lot of men that I know don't express themselves in a hurtful way. Like they make it sound like it wasn't nothing. He wasn't, I ain't need him, all this type of shit. When I don't think that's true at all. Like if there's not a mom and a dad in the home, there's a level of dysfunction going on. You just got to figure out what level that is per se. But talk to me about your experience with that, like not having your dad around, your relationship with him, like how that affects you.
Right. And I'll say a couple of things. You can have two parents in the home and it still be a level of dysfunction.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
And you can be separated and have no dysfunction because you work well with each other.
Very true.
But my father not being there, I didn't think like I don't need him or anything like that. It was because I only knew what I knew, and I knew that he wasn't there. He was there until I was like 3, and then he left. And I would see him on the weekends, but that drastically kind of curtailed. And then I just didn't see him that much. And then by the time I became a teenager, my peers became my friends. So I didn't realize what was happening to me. My peers didn't become my friends. My peers became my influencers. And I didn't realize what was happening to me. And I didn't have that structure. And what my life was chaos. Like every day was something different. You know what I mean? Like what clothes am I going to wear? Well, I got to borrow some clothes from my friends. Like how am I going to get to school? Do I have enough money to catch the bus? Am I going to have enough money to get something to eat? So every day there was like chaos. My mom's working 2 or 3 jobs. She's doing what she has to do. So I come home and I'm just with my boys and we're just doing, just doing whatever. I did have football, but it just was hard. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And now I realize the damage because I'm a father. Now I'm seeing what it actually means to be a father and be there constantly. You have to be there constantly. And that's just what I missed. And so that constant reinforcement, because I wasn't getting that reinforcement, because I didn't have him say, son, you're strong, love yourself, you can do this. I never had that once. You know what I mean? So I was insecure about everything. I didn't have confidence in anything. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't love myself because nobody really told me you need to love yourself. And so I just started acting out. I had a good heart. So it didn't take me down too bad of a path. And I'll thank my mom for that. But, I didn't know what I didn't know. So not having him wasn't like, I didn't understand at the time. I only understand what the impacts of not having a father when I'm a father.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Now, yeah, definitely. Now, this is something I always ask fathers because I think about this for myself because I have 5 boys. Oldest is 24 years old.
Yeah.
Started at 17, so I didn't been through a whole bunch of shit trying to be a father to these kids, right? What have you learned about yourself since becoming a father? Is there anything that because sometimes kids put a mirror in your face and they let you see who you are. So is there anything in particular, or just talk to us about that for a minute? What have you learned about yourself since becoming a father?
That's a good question. I've learned that, I'm definitely not patient the way I thought I was. They've taught me more on just how I should be. That's what I've learned about myself. They've just taught me a different way to live life because it is the hardest and the best thing you'll ever do. You know what I mean? And sometimes you just want to scream and be like, I can't do this anymore. And then there's times when you're just like, come here, I don't ever want to let you go. They taught me how to love myself more because they show me how much they love me. like, I'm not here most of the week. And, my little girl's like, I miss you. I need you to come home. Now that breaks your heart, but you're doing it for a reason. But at the same time, um, she's like, you need to come back to Maryland so I can see you. And it's just, it's hard. But they love me so much, so unconditionally. It makes you look at yourself and be like, you got to be there for them because you're their everything. And you have to, yeah. And then when you realize you're their everything, like you are starting to love yourself a little more.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of my experience. I mean,
Definitely. And so also, because I think that's very true. And the patience thing is big for me. I became like an extremely patient person
Yes.
once I had kids, but me just being younger, right? So I'm 17, 18 trying to do this job, and it shows you how the level of maturity that you're not at yet, and you're struggling with trying to provide and trying to teach a person lessons that you may not have even learned yet yourself.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes you got to double back and be like, remember what I told you when you was 9?
Right. And it's like, and how do you teach them something when you're doing that same action? When they see you
Yeah.
doing that
Yeah.
action, and that
Yeah.
is a maturity, thing. And that's not easy. I
It's
mean,
not easy.
it's not an easy thing to do.
Yep.
It's kind of do as I say, not as I do.
And I was just going to say that I was raised, and that's probably one of the worst things that reverberated in our community, because everybody said it, do as I say, not as I do. And it hit me like, wait a minute, they're actually doing everything they see me do and not what I say. They're watching my actions. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It is. It's yeah. Their thoughts aren't aligning with their actions. Yeah.
Definitely. Now, in the movie, it looked
Yeah.
as if like the character at times was using like manipulation as a
Yeah.
survival tactic. Like, why do you think do you think that's a part of the sobriety? Do you think that's a part of the depression? Like, why do you think?
I think that's part of the isms. You become a
Mm,
master manipulator. Now you'll hear stories, especially people who are addicted to drugs. How they manipulate you to get your money, how they manipulate their parents, to enable them, or how
mm,
they manipulate the parents and the parents therefore enable them. So and you learn to manipulate to get what you want. I learned at a really young age. That people liked my personality. And I was never able to like financially get what I want, but I could manipulate situations, manipulate people to get what I want.
mm,
And you don't want to be considered a master manipulator, but I was so good at manipulating, I manipulate myself.
mm,
You know what I mean? And then it just becomes a mess because how are you a good person when you're manipulating yourself? You're rationalizing, you're figuring out ways to do the things that aren't really helpful for you as a
mm,
person.
mm,
So I really wanted in the film to show that manipulation. I wanted to show the battle between the positive thoughts and the negative thoughts that I have, and how sometimes I said, yeah, it's depressive followed by manic, but sometimes it can be kind of munched together, and you have both going on at the same time.
mm,
And so, you know, I wanted to really show the mental side of what's going on for a person who's going through a tough situation, and those triggers that occur that make a person act in a certain way. So that's what I really wanted to show. But manipulation is a tool that a lot of people similar to me use.
mm,
So you got to
mm.
be careful. You got to be careful, man. You got to be
Definitely.
careful.
Definitely. Okay. So one of the last questions here, CJ,
Yeah.
I wanted to, because you mentioned dealing with sobriety.
Hmm.
Like I have an addictive personality, so I
Hmm.
have to be careful what I enjoy. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because I'm gonna want to do this shit all the time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I'm aware of myself. Like I'm keen to that, and I know. So I think sometimes people can see like someone drunk on the street corner, or
Uh-huh.
see someone on drugs on the street
Hmm.
corner, and you see them and say, that would never be me. I'm not one of those guys.
It's
I see
called.
that and I say, I need to be careful
Well,
because
yeah.
anybody can go there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, anybody can go there. And a lot of times what happens is it's called comparing out. You see somebody and you compare how you're not like them, but actually
Mm,
you are like them and you're not realizing your actions are the same actions they had to get them there. And so a lot
Mm.
of times when you go into meetings and institutions, you compare out instead of comparing in, instead of looking at
Whoa,
somebody
wait,
and
whoa.
how you
Compare out instead of compare. That's big right there,
yeah.
CJ.
Yeah, and I learned those in the rooms, the rooms where you're going for self help, or you're going to AA rooms, or you're going to therapy, or you whatever. This isn't my genius idea. It's something that I've been taught.
Hmm.
But you got to compare in. You got to figure out what makes you like them to figure out where that fault can come, and you can end up in that situation. I'm horrible at it sometimes. I compare out sometimes, and it's not necessarily saying that it's just you're trying to find the similarities versus the things that you don't have in common. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because obviously, as I look at that person looks disheveled. The person is wearing bummy clothes and all this stuff. That's not me, because I'm just looking at everything that doesn't make sense. But what are
Hmm.
the things that are making sense? And if you think that you have a problem with drinking or using, you'll compare out a lot because you don't want to accept that you have a problem. I remember going back to acceptance. It's the hardest. It's the hardest part. Accepting that you can't control yourself when under the influence of something else.
Definitely, definitely. So, brother, I thank you so much for coming and talk to me today. Well, tell everybody, when is
Yeah.
the movie available now?
Let's see. We can talk about that with the film really quick. So the film is called Normalized.
Mhm.
You can go to the movie.com, and you can check it out. And the good part about the film is it's not coming out right now because we're waiting for festivals to come back. So we're waiting to hear back from Sundance. And Sundance announces in a couple weeks whether or not we got in. Which we're fingers are crossed. And we have a whole bunch of festivals that we know we're going to get into, but we want these major ones because we want the premieres. So it doesn't come out until the festivals let us know, but
Got
it is now being developed into a network series, a network drama. So the film is just the start. It was actually started as a proof of concept. It was made so I can go to the networks and say, I told you I can do it. Now let me show
it.
you more. And so that's just actually the framework for how that show would look. So every episode is kind of the same idea where a guy's going into the podcast studio and he's having flashbacks, narratives, and telling his story. But
Mm.
we raise the stakes. We go into a lot deeper issues using my podcast as the baseline. So, that's kind of where this is all going. It's really exciting. There's ups and downs, but that's with any business. And effectively, I'm running a business. I was an executive producer for a film. I ran a business
Mhm.
that brought a lot of employees and a lot of people on board to buy in and be a part of this project. And it's been an amazing experience. I'm so grateful for everybody who's been a part of this process with me.
Definitely,
So
definitely.
yeah, Normalized Podcast, normalizedpodcast.com, and Normalize the movie. You can find all that information. But yeah, the trailer is on the website. Check the trailer out. If you like it, let me know. All my contact information's there. And that's we need to build that groundswell. You're one of the few who've seen it. We don't share it with everybody. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It means a lot to me that you were able to take something from it. It really does.
Definitely, definitely, and it just reminded it. It was great how you started it, like you mentioned, which is important for creators to understand. Like if you're trying to get something done and you're receiving help from someone or you're working with someone as a partner, both of you should be honest. So if your partner says, "Hey, this shit ain't good," you
Right.
can't get down on yourself. You can't. You got to say, "Okay, how can I make it better? What ways can I make an adjustment?" You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Right.
watching the movie, it was spot on as a starter point
Right.
for everything you're gonna do about it later because
Right.
it initiated what your initial reason for doing the show. So that was brilliant, brother.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Definitely, definitely. I wish you much success, man. Once it actually comes out, I want
Yeah.
you to come back and talk about your experience with it. You're gonna be a
Yeah.
whole movie star and shit. You know what I mean?
I'm not gonna lie, you dream big. And yeah, I mean, I wanted to take this industry. I've set my mind to it, and I figure if I've done it in engineering, I can do it in this. And
Yep.
so I there's nothing that I feel like I can't do right now. So I'm going at it. Yeah.
Yep, definitely, definitely. So everybody do me a favor, go to the normalizethemovie.com,
Yeah.
normalizethemovie.com so you can watch the trailer for the movie. Give the brother some feedback. When I talk about businesses, when we talk about anything we're doing creatively, one of the best things you can do to help us out is tell us what you think.
Be
We
honest.
don't know. You have to say something. You know what I mean, CJ?
Be honest. Don't tell me what you think I want to hear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't tell me what you think I want to hear. That doesn't help me. That doesn't help anybody in life.
Yeah.
Tell me the truth. I'm sorry, my dog just walked in on me.
No, it's all good. on cue.
Yeah, on cue.
Yep. So everybody, please do me a favor and go check out the trailer. Google the Normalized Podcast as well. He has 40 episodes. Like he said, he's gonna be starting back up pretty soon. But I think anybody dealing with something, anybody that has certain problems they've had to address in their life, they can definitely benefit from what the brother presents on his podcast. There's a lot of shows out there right now, like podcasts from TV shows to there's a lot of creative minds giving you information, and his approach to doing a podcast is something I've never seen before. Out of all the shows that we have available, he found his niche. So I think everybody will enjoy it. So Google his podcast, look that up. It's everywhere digital podcasts are available, right, CJ?
Yeah, it is. It's on SoundCloud. I got my website. You can just go to normalizedpodcast.com and listen to all the episodes there. It's on Apple. It's everywhere. It literally is everywhere. So yeah.
Definitely. So this has been another episode, man, of the Melanated Convo podcast. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to another show. Please don't forget to hit that like button, hit the share button. If you're listening on one of the digital platforms, give a comment, leave a review. And the comments help me, but like for algorithm purposes, but really it helps me. So because people on my YouTube page, because when I first started doing all of this, my skin wasn't so thick. Because I'm in this new space, and people would tell me shit they don't like, or they would comment, and I would want to go back at them a little bit. You know what I mean? But now I'm like, no, is that true? What they said about the pitch in my voice or something I presented, was there any truth to it? Like, if we're going to get better as people, we got to be in a position where we're okay with someone telling us we're wrong, or we didn't do something right. Like, that's how individuals grow. You know what I mean? So support the brother CJ and everything he's doing. I appreciate everybody for continuing to subscribe and be a part of my show. It means a lot to me. This has been another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. We out.